Namaskar, welcome back to Media Scan, your weekend dose of headlines, controversies and perspectives. US campuses across states are on the boil. They have brought in a lot of issues, but primarily the protests are about the policy of the US government in West Asia and a demand for a ceasefire in the Gaza area. Now, whether that demand is justified and whether students and protesters can force upon the government such a demand is a question for another day. Right now, the chatter across continents, particularly in the developing world, the global south, is about the double standards of the US intellectuals inside their own country and abroad. The massive crackdown against protesters has been questioned across continents, particularly when the US has been preachy across the world on questions of democracy, freedom, and the right to protest. How fair is the crackdown on the students? What about the balance between the freedom to protest and the question of maintaining public order? These are the questions we'll be taking up during our conversation this evening on Media Scan, and joining me, two very interesting friends who are right there in the thick of things. My first guest for the evening, Avatans Kumar, well-known journalist, senior commentator, and an activist for the cause of Indians living in the US. Welcome back to Media Scan, Avatans Kumar.
Namaste, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Another guest on the show, joining me straight from London, Satyam Surana. Not only a very vocal protester against double standards being adopted in campuses and colleges and institutions in the preachy West, but himself a victim of the kind of racist attitude that is often seen in these campuses. Welcome back, Satyam Surana.
Namaste, Smita ji. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Avatans Kumar, I'll come to you first. Do let our viewers know briefly what is the scale of these protests in the United States, how many campuses, colleges, institutions are affected, and what is the kind of action that the police, the administration is trying to take in order to bring back order in the campuses.
Thanks for having me, Smita, on your show. And you mentioned I'm an activist as well, but I'm here on my personal capacity. So going to your question, there are lots of universities. It started primarily from the top elite private institutions like Columbia University, Yale, and those kind of universities. But it has now moved on to many other parts of the country, many other universities all across the U.S. Scale of those protests are mostly still, big in Columbia, UCLA, USC, mostly blue state universities and very, very liberal and very rich universities. For example, if you go to Columbia, you pay about $90,000 per year. So it started there, but it has moved on to many other campuses, many small campuses, and the scale of protest that you have seen is now. It started with a camping kind of setup that they set up outside on the quads and all that. Now that has turned violent, as you have seen. Viral videos all around on the internet and as well as on media. Police action has taken place because the protesting students they captured some of the occupied some of the buildings, some of the offices, and a lot of Jewish students especially were threatened, and so police had to come in. Police was called in.
Just to clear out the picture, you are saying that it has been spreading once it started from a selected few private campuses. Now the question is, if the police has been so prompt in trying to control the protests, even preventing them from protesting in some cases, why did it spread so badly?
The police did not stop them initially. As you've seen, we have seen in the past few years, starting with the BLM and Antifa riots in the aftermath of George Floyd's killing. Police has been, because of their ideological leanings and who their ideological bosses are, police has been in the background. And you remember during the George Floyd riots, defund the police was one of the biggest points. So police has taken a back seat, and they have let criminals run amok in most of the cities. You saw what happens in Oregon, Portland, Seattle, New York, Chicago, San Francisco. So police has taken a back seat because of the ideology of the progressive left.
So
in the
you are
US.
saying that the police is feeling hobbled because of what happened in the George Floyd case and the aftermath of that entire case. But I'll come back to you on how India has responded to the protests earlier last week, and what is the chatter around the globe about what's going on there in the US. But if I can come to Satyam Surana first. Satyam Surana, you have been a direct victim of the entire, the entire attitude of targeting people from a certain community, certain countries, particularly the developing world, while they're trying to fight an election in LSE, in the London School of Economics, if I'm not wrong. Do tell me, what is the chatter going on about the things that are happening in the US, and how is the UK or the people from other parts of the globe looking at the whole thing?
Yes, Smitaji, as you perfectly said, like if we want to speak about the chatter about the entire drama going on in the US universities, in the UK, so it is around negligible. That is entirely the bias of the West. Like the UK is not speaking about the US. But if the same thing would have happened in India, there would have been a big holigoon, a big drama, and a big chatter even in the UK universities. Like, what is India doing? We have seen it during the anti-CAA protest. We have seen it during the farmers' protest. Like, even if one small thing happens in India around the farmers' protest, there is a big chatter all over the world. But the US
no, so why do you think there is a different standard for people in other countries, but not the same for, say, the US? Why is the UK not showing the kind of outrage and concern they usually do, as they did in the case of the anti-CAA protests in India, or as it happens from time to time for other countries?
I think this is the pure result and the pure descendant of the imperial colonist mindset that is still existing in the minds of the global north and the west. So this is nothing but the colonial mindset that has continued forward till date, to look down, to frown upon the global south, and to not accept what progress they are doing under a current leadership or under a right thinking leadership. I have always been vocal about the academic institutions being misused by certain political ideologies to get their vendetta in the name of liberalism and free speech. But the same standards of liberalism and free speech and due process of law are not applicable at looking at situations in countries like India, Sri Lanka, or any South Asian countries, or anyone who is a part of the global South, including the African nations. We have seen that right since the inceptions of the international criminal law regime as well.
So I'll come to Avatans Kumar on that, about what you have just flagged. Avatans Kumar, is it a fact that people, the think tanks, the intellectuals, people who are involved in the directly in the government also, plus the academicians, etc., they always think with a kind of a predetermined colonial mindset, and therefore the same kind of reactions are not visible when it comes to the action or the crackdown on US campuses and the protests, etc. And if I may just add, you must have seen the statement from the External Affairs Ministry in India, saying how they are taking, watching and observing what's going on across the US, and the fact that there is a need to balance freedoms, personal freedoms, the freedom to protest, but also maintenance of public order. Now, that statement has been interpreted in various ways. How would you look at it?
See, you have to see some of the things that the MEA has said from the U.S. perspective as well. It is important to call out all the largesses of the administration, the police, whatever they are doing with the students and all. But in the end, you have to also understand that we give freedom of expression a lot of importance in the U.S. and the freedom of expression, freedom of speech is almost absolute. Even hate speech is accepted as freedom of speech here, but not when it threatens somebody with violence. And that's when you have to, the police has come in many of the campuses, and that's when they are being, accused of excesses. But a point I'm trying to make here is that the police, that they have not been doing their job because they were not allowed to do their job. Had they been proactive in stopping all the violence, we would not have gone that far. Okay, so
right.
That's
on the
that's
question, no, that's a very interesting point you have raised. But that we are seeing big headlines across media, in television, in well-known global newspapers about a crackdown. But you are saying that these headlines could be misleading because had the police done its job right in the beginning, things wouldn't have flared up like this. So on that question of violence, I am curious to know, Avatans Kumar, you must have seen the kind of statements that emanated from the US campuses, various organizations, think tanks, bodies claiming to speak for global freedom about how the government of India is treating protests, etc. And some of them even went to the extent of, giving monikers to India about not being a democracy anymore, etc. That campaign, by the way, is still going on. In the light of those statements, how would you look at the present scenario?
See, there is a lot going on in terms of freedom of expression and the democracy, all those things. We have seen what's happening, how the political rival of the current occupant of the White House is being treated. They're trying to weaponize the legal system to contain the political rival. So that's one part of it. And we have seen how the social media and as well as mainstream media was censored during COVID and the elections, and even during Ukraine time. Remember, many of the Russian media outlets are not allowed in the U.S. So, so you have to take those things into consideration. And yes, we definitely have to call out these ironies when the U.S. government or U.S. intellectual class calls out India or any other country for their freedom of expression. We have to look. I am here speaking as a U.S. citizen. We also have to look at what we say and what we do, because this is now an open world.
Speaking
Everyone
of ironies,
sees what we do.
Avatans Kumar, speaking of ironies, if I can come to Satyam quickly. Satyam, Avatans Kumar was just referring to the ironies, of how various media outlets which the US does not, find comfortable have been banned there, and about censoring the coverage during the COVID pandemic and even later on the Ukraine issue. Another irony that is visible in this entire scenario, and we have seen it happening across campuses in London also, in some of the most well-known universities of the world. In this situation of irony, we often see that when it comes to India bashing, when it comes to targeting certain communities, etc. For example, a big element of these protests in the campuses in US is being labeled as anti-Semitism because it's actually against a particular community. In the same manner, we see in the US, in the UK also, often those who are leading these protests from the front are actually Indians. Now, how do you look at that?
See, this intellectual class has been totally hijacked in the name of some brainwashing, and I would like to completely say that this terms like anti-Semitism, xenophobia have been misused totally by these people. Just yesterday, I was reading a statement by Joe Biden. He has termed India to be xenophobic. At the same time, when the Israeli Prime Minister comes to India, along with in a joint press statement which was issued along with our Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi, the Israeli Prime Minister was proud of the fact that the Israeli community and the Jewish community has never faced any instance of xenophobia right since its inception in India. So this is how free we are. So these double standards are totally a display of the jealousy that is going on. And coming to your question of Indians being used, so it is very clear that Indian students are the most used kind of community in such kind of protests. Indian students are brainwashed to the core, and it is no other than other fellow Indian students and Indian so-called academics who are staying in these foreign nations and concocting anti-India propaganda in the name of some academic intellectualism and in the name of some free speech. And these academicians are continuously day and night engaged in only one thing, that is spreading anti-India propaganda. They are not concerned about students being involved in protests for say Palestine, in protests for say some other topic. So long as the protests are against the policy of India, and so long as the protests are successful in demeaning India and taking India down somewhere from its pedestal on the global scale right now, these
Okay.
Indian students and these Indian academics are pretty active in such protests.
Okay, I'll take that question to Avatans ji also. Avatans Kumar, is it not a fact that such pushing an anti-India agenda and often a Hindu-phobic agenda, because Hindus identified with this land, has also been, is being attempted in the US at least for the past 2-3 years? There have been conferences and various seminars focused on this.
Absolutely. I mean, who can forget the global, dismantle global Hindutva conference started by one of the history professors of Rutgers University. And you will be surprised, Smita, to know that one of the demands that these protesting students have put out involves Kashmir. They want a Kashmir flag to be put out because they say that it's an occupied land. So
they are conflating the trouble in Gaza with Kashmir now, which is now completely peaceful. People are ready to vote in a few days there.
Yeah, absolutely. And think of it that, we were talking about how knowledgeable these people are. They have no idea. Half the crowd that I would guarantee that have no idea what the complex situation in Palestine or is between Israel and Palestine is. They think that after the ceasefire, Gaza will turn out to be a secular state, and LGBTQ rights will be established there. But they are all confused. We have to see that. Now they're talking about climate also in that, So one of the issues that we think about is that how our youth has lost purpose because of the loss of family
values. From a ceasefire in Gaza, which is a completely military question, to the rights of the queer people and going on to climate change, it's like, anybody's take out there. But please stay with us, Avatans Kumar. I'll come back to you in a minute. I want a quick reply from Satyam Surana about the fact that, isn't Kashmir a kind of a perpetual topic in these campuses? Sometimes for sloganeering and protests, at other times, mostly for seminars, etc. I mean, how many of them have actually come to Kashmir in the past 3 years and seen the kind of change that is visible? And the peaceful, the active life people are leading there finally because the fear of the gun is not there anymore?
Yeah, so see, when India is progressing at such a vast level on the global scale, the only two topics remaining for the global north to criticize India and to come down upon India or to somehow create an anti-India narrative at the global level is Kashmir and Khalistan. So these two topics have ever been on the speaking list of the anti-India people, come what may. And these are the same people who will not speak up against the violations of human rights in Pakistan occupied Kashmir. These are the same people who will not speak about the violation of human rights in some Pakistani area. But at the same time, when the Indian government is making roads, building roads, providing infrastructure, providing hospitals in the Kashmir region, these people turn a blind eye towards it. I recently attended a conference in the the British Parliament, and people from Pakistan occupied Jammu Kashmir literally were crying there that we don't have a single hospital in our entire area, we don't have a single school, college, a secondary college in our entire area, and that is what their plight is. And the global community has totally turned a blind eye towards that issue, because the only one reason is it is against it is as good as speaking for India. So the global South has never been active towards speaking with India. And
I
also
get point taken, Satyam Surana. And perhaps one of these days, these the people, the activists in the campuses will perhaps find some time to think about the plight of people in Pakistan occupied Kashmir too. But since I have very little time left with me, I must come back to Avatans Kumar here. Avatans Kumar, since this is media scan, while we were going through the conversations across media platforms on what's happening in the US, a common thread that was visible in the comments of people was, the US has been accused on various occasions of fanning, pushing and promoting protests in various parts of the world, and India has always been very high on that list. And so what's now happening there is somewhere it seems like a case of, the chickens coming home to roost.
Absolutely, it feels like that way. But you have to keep in mind, it's the kind of friends you keep. Remember, CAIR is a Muslim organization that was part of the Biden administration. Okay, they were working with them for a long time, and only recently, couple of months ago, one of their leaders from a public platform said some anti-Semitic things, and that's why they had to cut their ties with them. These are the people who are behind these protests. If you go deeper into it, if you look at some of their agenda, they have direct connection with Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas. So these are the kind of people who are behind it. So now they are definitely coming to, you said chicken, coming to roost. Now they've also realized, Biden administration has realized that it's getting harder for them to win in some of the swing states, because the Muslims are now against Biden, especially in Michigan.
In one line, Avatans Kumar, do you think this is going to impact the upcoming elections in the US in a major way? Is that possible?
It is, because remember, we have electoral college, and the difference between the winning candidate and losing candidate in 2020 was close to 40,000 votes only. And these are some of the swing states where this will matter, especially Michigan. Mr. Biden has to win Michigan. Michigan has a significant Muslim Arabic population, and they even had protest vote. They voted their nota kind of vote. They got a couple of delegates when they had the primary there. So they are already gunning against him.
So Avatans Kumar, thank you very much for that, the background that you have given of these protests, not only the protests, but how it might impact the upcoming elections in the US, which of course the whole world is keeping a watch on. But I'm afraid that's all the time we had for this evening. We'll definitely come back to both of you in a later episode and try to see, how things have progressed. Meanwhile, thank you very much, Avatans Kumar, for joining us at a very ungodly hour from the US. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Satyam Surana, always ready to be on the show whenever we have asked him. Thank you, Satyam, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Mitaji. Thank you.
Viewers, our guests have made it very clear that not only is it the question of double standards towards countries like India and a different standard for themselves when it comes to protest closer home, it is also a question of various terrorist, dangerous organizations threatening peace, such as Hamas, which may have a hand in the way these protests have flared up. As Government of India articulated, there is a need for a balance between public order and the right to protest. But we must be very careful, and US government needs to maintain vigil that protests on a certain issue do not turn into anti-Semitism, because they have definitely had an anti-Hindu agenda in the past, as we've all seen. On that note, it's a wind up on Media Scan for this weekend. Do join us next weekend. Till then, namaskar.